If you want to learn everything about creating stylized hair, then this tutorial by the wonderful Dan Eder is for you. I also wanted to let you know that for a very limited time, the 3D coloring book is now only $49. If you want to learn some stylized texturing techniques, click the link in the description. Now let's get right into the tutorial.
Hey there, my name is Dan and I'm a character artist for video games. I've modeled quite a few characters over the years, but I'm probably most known for creating gorgeous women with long, flowing hair. Today I will be guiding you through the stylized hair creation for Street Fighter's Chun-Li, or as she's called in America. Now I know that tutorials can be a boring, tedious experience, so I will try to keep this one as short and concise as possible. If there's anything you'd like to know that isn't answered here, feel free to leave me a comment on YouTube or ArtStation. Welcome to Stylized Hair Creation in ZBrush. I guess subscribe and stuff? So before we get into the actual ZBrush stuff, we want to make sure we have a solid understanding of how the hair is actually going to be constructed. When looking at this concept art, before anything else, your eyes go to one area and one area only. The hair. Upon review, you'll notice that it's actually made up of several different parts. This is an important step because even though you won't find thousands of tiny strands in stylized hair like with something like XGen, you still want to break up the hairstyle into separate chunks, so you can have more control while allowing for better rigging and animation. This stage is commonly referred to as a blockout, and what you need to remember is that the only purpose of this mesh is just to lay the groundwork for the real hair you're eventually going to make. 3 main points to keep in mind during this stage. Number 1. Work on a low subdivision level or Dynamesh resolution. The more polygons you have, the more difficult it is to manage. Number 2. Don't worry about making the blockout look pretty at this stage. It just needs to serve a purpose. Number 3. Check your silhouette. Make sure you've got nice clean curves and that the shapes read well from every angle. So now that we've got some decent looking blockout hair, we can move on to the big boy territory, creating the actual hair strands. Join me in the next video on this playlist to learn some of my techniques for creating appealing stylized hair. Now that we've got our rough blockout hair, we can start going over the process of creating the strands. Before we get started, if like me you also can't understand half of what I'm saying, feel free to turn on the subtitles and pretend this is a foreign tutorial. So the way I do hair in ZBrush is by using... This brush was made by Dylan Ekren, who is a very professional artist, and one of my favorite character modelers. He's also got great initials. If you're not already familiar with it, a curve brush doesn't function like a regular sculpting brush, but is more similar to Maya's NURBS or 3ds Max's splines, in that you basically control a so-called wire holding your shape together. Let's take a look at how the hair tubes brush works before we get into the actual hair creation. To select the brush, hit B, D, E. Start by dragging a line across the mesh. When you release, you'll notice the root and tip are inverted. Simply go to Stroke, Curve Modifier and set the curve based on the shape you want. I normally start with something like this. Always check the curve step value before you start. Choosing a low value will make your curve have too many polygons that will make it harder to control, but a high value won't give you enough polygons to work with. I usually create strands from front to back, so let's start with this section in the front. We'll do this one in real time, and after that I'll time-lapse the rest of the hair until we get to the braids, just so this tutorial doesn't end up taking 3 hours of your time. So now that we're done with the front bangs, and before we move on to the time lapse, let's recap the process. Create the strand on top of the temporary hair mesh. Play around with the curve until you're happy, and then left click anywhere to finalize. Either split up the strand into a different subtool or just keep it as a separate poly group, whatever works for you. Use move, inflate, pinch and snake hooks to further tweak the strands. Do not use smooth. After you're done placing all the necessary strands, merge them together and delete the temporary base mesh. Move the strands around until you're happy, but make sure to keep everything round, clean and sharp. Don't worry if some of the strands look duplicated or repetitive. We'll add some variation later. Once you're ready for the next step, we can move on to part 3 of this playlist, creating the rest of the strands. Now that we're done with the front part, let's continue placing the strands. You can choose to watch a 12-minute time-lapse of the entire process, or if you're short on time, you can skip to 12:35 and just watch the recap. Enjoy!
I can feel
Now that more sections have been added, let's go over some of the steps that I've taken. When dealing with symmetrical hair that's parted in the middle, it's often a good idea to work without symmetry at first and then mirror the hair using subtle master. This will prevent errors and retain the polygroups. Try to close any gaps between the strands that look unintentional. You want the hair to look full and clean. Constantly switch up the materials. You'd be amazed by how many issues you'll discover. Use Z-Remesher to either add edge loops where you feel you don't have enough, or conversely remove edge loops that you feel are unnecessary or excessive. This can be helpful in preventing redundancy. Try to keep obvious overlapping or clipping of strands to a minimum. In the next video, we'll create the braids and wrap up the rest of the hair. See you there! Welcome to part 4 of the hair tutorial. In this video, we'll finally finish placing the strands. I'll start by completing the main part in the back before moving on to the braids. You can watch the time lapse or just skip to 12:20 where I'll start going over the process of creating the braids. Enjoy! Now that all our strands are in place, let's create the base of the braids. This is actually one of the easiest parts of the hair. For this process I like to start off by using this awesome free brush from Bat King. I've provided a link in the description in case you want to use it yourself. First, create the braids using the same method as the strands. Adjust the curve step and tweak the shape until you're happy. After we've made our base, let's make it interesting. I'm going to show you a little trick to easily add detail and variation to your hair. First, to make things easier, I'll delete one side of the braids. Next, I'm going to split up the 3 poly groups into different subtools. Now comes the creative part. Using ZModeler, I crease a few of the edge loops and then turn those creases into curves using stroke, curve functions, frame mesh, while only having creased edges turned on. Next, we can use the very same hair tubes brush to place the strand along the curve of the braid. As always, hit B, D, E and click on the curve. Chances are you're not going to get a great result right off the bat, so play around with the brush size and curve step. Finally, you want to try to make the strands merge with the current shape. So go to brush, depth and lower the depth just a little bit. What you'll eventually get is a much nicer and more detailed result, with polygroups that you can easily manipulate to create some fun variation. Now that we're done with the braids, let's move on to the final video in this tutorial series. See you there! Congratulations! You've made it to the 5th and final part of this tutorial. Are you still motivated or do you feel like pulling your hair out? Now that our hair has finally been completed after a few minor tweaks, let's recap the entire process. Gather some reference, plan out your hair sections. Create a rough blockout using basic spheres and Dynamesh. Create the hair curves using DE hair tubes on top of the hair chunks. Adjust the shape, volume and curvature of the strands using move, pinch and inflate. Make sure it looks clean and natural from every angle. Profit!
I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Massive thanks to Dan for sharing this with the community and sharing all of that knowledge. If you want to check out more of his work, feel free to check him out on his ArtStation, his Instagram, and check out his YouTube channel as well. We'll see you guys in the next video.